The number one poker question I'm asked is how do I get good at poker and crush the games if I don't have a bankroll to play the stakes that I want to play? Well, we're going to answer that right here for you today. Whenever I first started playing online poker, I had $50. It's not a whole lot of money, but that really is all you need to get started. I recommend you looking for free roll tournaments where a lot of money is added, or perhaps a low buy-in tournament that has money added. I'll give you one right now. Check it out at pokercoaching.com/weeklymtt. We give away an extra $1,000 every week to people who sign up at pokercoaching.com/weeklymtt. Some people think I need to get backing. I need to have somebody giving me money. I hate to break it to you, but if you have little to no poker experience and you have no money, no one's going to give you money unless they're your mom or your dad and they feel bad for you. Get in there, work hard, grind it out, and build a bankroll on your own. Now, while you're in the process of grinding, I strongly recommend you study poker a ton, because whenever you are first starting poker, you're not going to be able to make a whole lot of money from poker because you have no bankroll. You have a tiny amount of money to work with. Back when I had $50 to my name that I put in an online poker site, I was probably making like $1 or $2 per hour, but I loved it. I was grinding, I was learning, and I was enjoying my time. This was many years ago, before we had game theory optimal solvers and trainers to play against. Fortunately for you though, you can now study a lot in your spare time, and on top of that, you can play against a poker trainer that will help you get a ton of experience playing essentially like you're playing online, because the trainers simulate that, right? So you need to make a point to study a lot, go through the tournament and or cash game masterclasses at pokercoaching.com to get up to speed. And then from there, you need to get experience playing with a GTO trainer like at PEAKGTO.com. I recommend you study situations that come up very frequently, ideally with somewhat loose ranges, which is mainly going to be whenever you are on the button and you're against the big blind, or you're in the big blind and you are against the button. So what I want to do today is I want to show you PEAKGTO.com, and I want to go through some very common spots that you need to understand so that you can be playing well right off the bat. If you take your hard-earned money from your job and you put, let's say, a $50 or $100 in an online site and you don't know how to play, you're going to get demolished. So please, 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 please study a lot before you get started. This week only, I'm giving away a free 7-day pass to PEAKGTO.com. Get in there, study hard, and train like the pros. I actually had a big head start when I first started playing poker, because before I ever put $1 in an online poker site, I had read about 5 poker books. That may not sound like a lot today, but back in the day, there weren't very many poker books. I had studied some, my opponents had studied none, and that's all it took. Today, though, you have to be pretty good at the game, even to beat the micro stakes, and studying with a trainer like at PEAKGTO will go a long way to helping you do that. So on PEAKGTO, we have all sorts of stack depths for cash games, tournaments, etc. But what I want to focus on today is a very common spot that you'll encounter in a tournament. Let's say we have 40 big blinds, and we are going to have everyone folding. First position folds, 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 and it's on us in the button, or on the button. So here are the hands you should raise in red. Here are the hands you should fold in blue. You may say, what if my opponents are too tight? What if I think I can get away with playing way crazier than the solver? What if my opponents are crazy? Oh, there's a lot of what ifs in poker. You have to use some common sense and adjust logically. For example, say you know the player in the small blind only plays pocket aces, which you will never know, but presume you know that. Well, you all of a sudden can raise much wider than this 50% range, right? Because you know you're going to get way more folds. Use some common sense. That said, in general, when you're first starting to play poker, you should presume you don't really know what your opponents are doing because you barely know what you're doing yourself. So learn to play good, strong, fundamentally sound strategies. We outline this thoroughly at pokercoaching.com in the tournament and cash game masterclasses. If you go and sign up at pokercoaching.com and you don't think you've learned much of anything, you don't think it was beneficial for you, ask for a refund within 30 days and we'll give you all your money back. If we do not help you get better at poker, we do not want or deserve your money. All right, here's what we're going to raise with on the button. Don't be scared. If you get the Jack 3 suited or the Jack 8 offsuit or the 9-8 offsuit or the 6-4 suited, play them. That said, also be disciplined. If you have the 7-6 offsuit or the 5-4 offsuit or the 8-4 suited, fold them. Learn to play good, strong, fundamentally sound strategies. Here we're raising to 2.3 big blinds. If the blinds are, let's say, 100, 200, you're going to make it something like 500 or 400, presuming there's no 50 or 25 chips in a live tournament, right? Sometimes you have to be a little bit fluid, if you can't raise to exactly 2.3, do your best. We make it 2.3. We're going to presume today the small blind folds. And here is how the big blind should play 40 big blinds deep. Now, your opponent may not do this. They may call too often. They may re-raise too often. They may fold too often. Who knows? But here's what the big blind should do. This is important because this will impact the range of hands they go to the flop with. If their range is tighter, you're going to play slightly differently. If it's wider, you're also going to play slightly differently. Anyway, they should re-raise the hands in light red. As you can see, most of the best hands. Also, a bunch of bluffs. I will say in small stakes games, a lot of people don't find these bluffs. They would never re-raise the 10-7 offsuit about half the time. You can see over here, 10-7 offsuit re-raises 45% of the time in general as a bluff. A lot of people don't do that. Therefore, maybe their range contains more of these hands when they just call, which is the spot we're going to look at today. Notice they will just call about 61% of the time. Pretty often, right? And perhaps even wider because they may have more of these junker hands. Also, a lot of not such studied players re-raise a few more hands at the top of the range, like king jack suited, queen jack suited, king queen offsuit, ace queen offsuit, ace jack offsuit every time. So that may also make their calling range a little bit weaker, which is good for you. They should also go all in with these hands in dark red. A lot of people don't have an all-in range. They opt to call or re-raise instead. But even for 40 big blinds, if someone makes it 2.3, you should be ripping it all in for 40 big blinds. If this is new to you, you've not seen these types of charts before, please, please, please study at pokercoaching.com. We have all of this outlined for you there. So they call, and then we have to figure out how to play after the flop. And this is where the trainer comes in. So we can click right here on the trainer for PEAKGTO, and now we can set up the specific scenario we want to play. We want to play a full hand. We're going to go to some post-flop scenarios. We're going to be in a tournament, 8-handed, with a 1 big blind ante, which is the case in most live poker tournaments today. Online, usually there's a 12.5% ante, which is roughly 1 big blind. We want to be on the button, and we want to be against the big blind. 40 big blinds deep. We want to do raise first since this is when we raise and they just call. And now we could go through here and put in specific boards if we felt inclined, or we could go through specific board types. When you are working on studying very specific scenarios, go in and drill that specific spot. Maybe let's say you want to play only paired boards. Study those paired boards a lot till you master them. Maybe you want to play 2 to a flush board or 3 to a flush board, right? Study specific spots. Also, we can go through and select the hands we want to be dealt to begin with. We know we should play roughly 50-ish% of hands on the button. We just took a look at that. Remember, it's something like this. So let's give us this range to begin with so we don't have too many pre-flop folds. Let's go click over here on modes. I want to have no time bank in case we want to discuss the scenarios. And I want to see only what they have if we get to the showdown. Here we have the King 3 offsuit on the button. If we have studied our spots over here earlier, you will know in this spot, when it folds us on the button, King 3 is not quite good enough. Whenever you are studying with a trainer, always make the pre-flop range a little bit wider than you may naturally think, just to be sure you know your pre-flop range as well. We fold this hand, we move on to the next one. Now we have the 5-4 suited. This is definitely good enough to raise. We raise it up to 2.3 big blinds. Big blind calls. Flop comes King 7-6, 1 heart. This is an interesting spot where you have to be a little bit careful betting with draws because you don't really want to bet and get raised. That said, I think this one's probably fine to bet, and I would go for the small bet in this spot. Notice we have this randomizer over here. It will give us a number between 1 and 100. When the number is very low, I typically try to take the more cautious route with hands I think mix in game theory optimal world between bet and check. When it's high, I usually am taking the more aggressive line or using the bigger size. Here, though, I think check or bet small is probably fine, although bet big may be good too. It does check or bet small. I know that number flashed by quick. You can always go back and rewind and look at any of these stats if you feel inclined. And now we have to figure out what to do on this turn. So with open-ended straight draws, very often you do want to check because if you bet and get shoved on, you have to fold. That said, I think this 5-4 is bad enough to go for the bet. Also, he rolled a generally high number, so I think that's going to make me go for a bet. And I think we want to go something like pot. Feels dicey, but this is going to be a hand I think we can bet the turn and then jam all in. Checking, I think, would also be reasonable. So here I bet. It does look like it mostly wants to check. So let's go over here. We bet and the opponent folded. You can click this Study in Library feature. and it will pull up our exact situation. And it will show us how to play this range on every betting round, or this hand and range on every betting round. So my question was, on the turn, what does the 5-4 want to do? It looks like it mostly wants to check. Notice the 5-4 of diamonds is betting just because there's a bit more equity. So I had the idea right of the draws, especially open-ended draws, want to check some portion of the time. Notice 9-8's also checking some portion of the time, right? Jack-10, not so much. It is a spot, though, where we should be mixing it up is what it amounts to. And we mixed it up, but I chose the bet. Notice we did roll the bigger bet size in the randomizer, so that's like a reason to use the more aggressive line. But this hand would usually err towards check. I want to make something very, very clear. Game theory optimal poker is hard. Poker in general is hard. And if you do not actively study the game, you are going to be guessing. And, well, we're all guessing, but the closer you guess to right, the better you're going to be. And that is what playing around with the solver does. As you practice and play with the solver, the trainer, more and more and more, that's going to go a long, long way to helping you improve your skills. 10-6-4 flop. I think we can bet small. Maybe check it back. Looks like check is used a lot, or the big bet. Notice we have an ELO rating up here. If this is essentially a rating of how good you are at GTO poker. And if your number's consistently going up, that's a good thing. If it's going down, that's, well, not a good thing. Eventually, you may get to a spot where you kind of plateau, and that probably is about as good as you are, but that should tell you you need to make a point to study and figure out the scenarios you are getting wrong. All right, turn is a queen, which is great. On this board that contains lots of flush draws and lots of straight draws, we definitely want to bet on the bigger side. There's this concept in Game Theory Optimal Poker. When the current strong hands are unlikely or kind of unlikely to be very strong on the river, typically you want to bet big immediately. And that's usually the case with a hand like top pair when there's a 3 flush or 2 to a flush or 2 to a straight. If there's 3 to a flush or 3 to a straight, though, in those scenarios, you often want to bet smaller with your whole range when you do decide to bet, because straights and flushes or whatever are very likely to stay good by the river. I'm going to bet big in this spot. Again, I can be wrong. I'm going to be wrong a lot in this video probably. So let's go for the big bet. Look, big bet 100% of the time. We finally nailed one. That's a hand that makes a whole lot of sense to bet big because it's almost always good but very vulnerable. That's going to be a pattern you see over and over again. Hands that are almost always good but very vulnerable usually bet big. All right, 8-5-2. We can probably bet this decently often. I'm going to go for the small bet. Ooh, it wants to check. Okay. All right, so look, I was wrong about this one. Let's go over here and take a look at the trainer and see why I was wrong. I get that the low cards are good for the opponent. I presumed we could bet decently often, though, because our range should be kind of wide, but I guess we do a lot of checking. And it turns out we do a lot of checking. So look, I would have gotten this one decently wrong. We are betting top pairs and better. Remember, hands that are almost always good but vulnerable usually bet big. Using the 80% pot size, right? You can click here and see what's betting big. We also have this categories feature that shows what types of hands are betting big, mainly 2-pair, overpair, top pair, and then junk. The junk is betting big because when you bet big with junk and your opponent folds, it's good. And when you bet big with your good hands and you get called, that's also good. But in this spot, a common pattern will show you that draws that don't want to get raised 40 big blinds deep usually don't bet all that often. Notice here, 9-7 and 9-6 are great examples of this. They are checking because in this situation, if you bet and get raised, it's bad. And I got that wrong. I presume we could bet frequently using a small size here, but that is not the case. Now, I do want to show you what happens if we bet a small size. Look at how wide the opponent has to call. They have to call stuff like, or raise with stuff like King 4, Queen 4, King 10, Queen 10, King 9, Jack 10. This is where you may want to deviate from the solver. If you think that your opponents will fold these hands, which a lot of people will, I mean, you think your opponent's going to check call Queen Jack out of position every time for a small bet? A lot of people won't. If you think they're going to be folding in this scenario, that actually allows you to use the small bet more frequently. So while you should be studying the solver, you also have to use your brain a little bit and adjust to what your opponents are going to do incorrectly. We discuss adjustments thoroughly in the Tournament Masterclass and the Advanced Tournament course at pokercoaching.com, so make sure you check that out. Also, we have drills of the day on PEAKGTO, where I or other poker coaching coaches like Justin Saliba, Aram Zobian, Matt Affleck, Brock Wilson go through common scenarios you will find yourself in. And we're not just going through the sim and saying what happens. We're discussing how you should perhaps adjust to take advantage of the mistakes the opponents make. So anyway, this is a spot where we should check the flop and go from there. It's a common scenario, 40 big blinds deep, where the draws that don't want to get raised don't do a whole lot of betting. Oh boy, here we raise and get shoved on. We didn't really discuss this scenario. We can actually go through here and take a look. If you want to study this spot ahead of time, we raise the button, small blind folds, big blind goes all in, like I said with the hands in red. Do we call the sixes? And I presume it's going to be yes, and it is yes. Good. But ideally, you sear this chart into your brain, and now you know what to do. Again, in the real world, though, I would probably call a little bit tighter than this. Why? Because I don't think people are shoving the small pairs all that often. All right, king 8 on the button. We can raise it up. Flop comes ace king 8. I think we can probably bet small or medium. This is a flop that, I think we probably want to bet decently often. Our hand is a hand that really wants to err towards betting big, I think. We rolled a 79. I'm going to bet 4.1, but I can be convinced any other bet size is fine. And take a look at that. All the bet sizes are used sometimes. So in scenarios like that, as long as you're betting, it's going to be fine and good. Here, the opponent opts to lead on us. This is a situation that will occur if your opponent is a good, strong poker player when they check call the flop, and I should not have a whole lot of 8s in my range, either because I don't raise them pre-flop or because I would not have bet them on the flop. When they lead, in this spot, we're definitely just going to call. Do not raise, because you want to keep them in the pot with all their junk. They go all in, obviously, easy call. They have queen 10 for a bluff. Cool. Let's go through another hand. 10-4 suited. Ugh. You can raise it. It's close. Again, if you're ever lost, always reference the chart whenever you are in practice mode. Notice 10-4 suited barely calls. How do I know that? Well, I've looked at the chart a lot. 9-8-4. I think this is a hand that's bad enough to bet. We have backdoor flush draw, backdoor straight draw, and an overcard. This is a scenario where you would also probably not want to bet your gut shot straight draws too much. And the junkers you can be more inclined to bet. So I think I'll bet it. Small or medium, like whatever. I'm going to go for the small bet. Or maybe you're supposed to just go big. The thing is, it's like with hands that don't want to fold to a raise, when you do bet, you often bet on the smaller side. I think this hand can fold to a raise, so I'm going to go for the bigger size. Plus, we rolled kind of high over here. So 61%. Notice the small bet's actually never used with this hand. And that is for the reason I just said, right? We've laid out tons and tons and tons of general rules or heuristics for spots like that in the tournament masterclass at pokercoaching.com. We do the same thing for cash games as well, so make sure you check that out. Queen 6 offsuit. Close. Let's say fold. And it is a fold. How do we know fold? We literally just looked at the chart. Queen 6 is a fold. King 2. We literally just looked at the chart. Fold. Notice king 5 and better raise, right? So as you practice this over and over again, you're going to get better and better at nailing these frequencies. But if you don't know what good, strong, fundamentally sound poker looks like, you're just going to be guessing. And if you're guessing, well, you're going to guess wrong way more often than if you know because you studied. King 5-3. I think we can bet small frequently here. So we're going to go small 88% of the time. That's good. We get raised. Okay. What would you do with the king 4 in this spot? Take a second, think about it. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you're enjoying today's video, by the way, click the like button, click the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. With the king 4, I think our only option is to call. When you get check raised in general, when you're in position, you do not want to do a whole lot of raising, re-raising. I know a lot of people think, oh, king 4 is probably good. I want to get all the money in immediately. But no, no, no. You want to keep your opponent in with all of their junk because king 4 very often is the best hand. But if we get all the money in now, we're actually not going to be loving it because they're going to fold all of their junk and get it in with all their good hands. So call. Looks like we do re-raise more than I would have thought, 20%. I bet again on the turn. Okay, this is a cool one because once the opponent starts to have like half of their money in the pot, you do start to gain some, call it value, by getting them to fold out hands that have some equity. And I'm not sure if this one's going to shove or call. Notice we did roll very high over here. Remember I said if we roll a very high number, I'm typically more inclined to take the aggressive line. So I'm going to go all in here, but I could be convinced this is just a 100% call. Oh, it is a 100% call. We got it wrong. We lose a bunch of ELO rating. Sometimes that high number will trick you. Let's go back and replay this hand because I want to do it again. So we raise. There's a replay button down there in case you ever want to replay the hand. We raise, they call. We bet, what do we decide? Small on the flop. They raise. We call. Turns this. They bet. We call. Now on the river, what do we do? I can already tell you we're not going to fold. I don't think we're going to fold. Call 100%. Don't go around folding. Let's wrap it up right there. That's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed going through these hands on PEAKGTO.com. Make sure you check it out. Good luck in your games. Have fun. I wish you the absolute best of luck and best of skill in your progression from turning $0 into a real bankroll. The way to do it, though, is to get good at poker first, and studying away from the table will make that happen. I'll talk to you next time.